All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to video 5 in the budget course. This is creating the system. Now, one of the things that's sort of surprising to people when they get to this point in the videos is that you're actually pretty much done, right? Once we've covered these ideas of what a budget, what a zero-based budget is, what your income is, what your four walls are, and what your debt is, for most people, that covers most of their expenses. That covers most of their financial lives. And so if you've got other things to think about that are important to add, definitely do that now. But at this point, you've made a bare bones zero-based budget. Now, when I say bare bones, it's got to be a zero-based budget, which means you got to eventually get to zero. So the goal is to finish off the last bit of the budget and put the money where you want it to go. Be conscious and intentional about where you want it to go. But you need to get everything to zero. So in the end, you're usually going to have an everything else account, and every month we have one of those where that's the account that every leftover penny we have goes to. It might be debt if you're in debt. It might be saving up for a new car if that's where you're at, or it might be saving up for a trip if you're up in baby steps 4, 5, and 6. Whatever it is, it's got to be. There's always a spot where, as you change the budget, that number will change slightly, but in the end, every single penny is going to go onto that last account. And so once we've got this budget made now, the trick is now we got to make it in such a way that it's really easy to work with. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this message about creating the system, right? And the goal here to be able to create this system where it's really easy to make a budget. It's really easy to update the budget when things change, and it's really easy to track the budget. All of those things have to be just dead easy, because if they're not, you're just not going to do them, right? Things will get busy, things will get tiring and whatever, and you will not keep up with them. So we've got to have an easy way to do these things. Now, this, just to remind you, this is super, super important, even from a biblical point of view. I love this scripture in Proverbs 27. It says, "Be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations." And I love this picture because in the context, the Jews at the time many of them were shepherds. And so to have flocks was your resources. That was your livelihood. Your entire family's source of financial protection was your flock. And so in that case, you think about the ideas of budgeting, updating, and tracking. I mean, all of those things happen in that scenario too. You might look at this coming month and say, well, I've got 3 sheep that are due to give birth. And okay, so we're expecting 3 more sheep this month. I'm going to take 2 of them because 2 of them are very old. I'm going to take them in and I'm going to sell them at the market, or we're going to slaughter them, or what have you. And these other 5, these ones are ready to shear. So we're going to shear these ones, right? So you're doing all this on purpose, and you're knowing the condition, the actual condition of your flocks. And it really points out then the silliness of doing an average budget in that kind of scenario, right? Oh, well, on average, 1.5 sheep are due to give birth, and 3.2 sheep are going to be taken to market. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like it says, okay, let's actually look at what's happening now, right? Like, oh yeah, 3.2 on average per year get taken by wolves. Like, no, like how many this month, right? Like, that you want to know what's going on right now. What is the actual condition? Is there a disease that's spreading through them that you need to deal with right now, right? Like, you need to know the actual condition. And that's why tracking is this thing that people love to make budgets, but the tracking part of it has to be a part of it. If it's not, what are you doing, right? There's no point. So we're going to talk a lot about the how here. Now, in one sense, however you do this for you and your family, as long as it works, it's great. It has to be dead easy to create, update, and track. That's the only condition. And you can do that on paper. You can literally start at the top of a piece of paper with your income, and then just start writing down, write out your 4 walls and just start subtracting as you go, and then just add new lines until you get all the way down to 0. You can do that. That'll work on a piece of paper. And then tracking, same thing. You can track on a piece of paper if you want, and you can write down your transactions and add and subtract. It just takes longer to do. And so I've never been one to do that. It just seems like too much work. And the way I'm going to give you here is certainly much easier than that to me. So I'm going to give you what we do, and what I'm convinced on is if you actually take the time to set this up, you take what all the other videos have taught, you take this one and you put it together into making this budget, you really can get to a place where with very little time, very little energy, you're creating, updating, and tracking your budget constantly with very little thought, very little effort. Even if you're pessimistic on this, if you watch what I say and you're like, nah, I don't think that'll work for me, I urge you to give it a shot first. Okay, it took a long time for us to finally find this way that worked. And in fact, we tried the app we're going to use here. We tried it before and we didn't like it. And we changed some things in our finances, and now it's amazing. Now I worry that they're going to take it away from me. Like, this is the most amazing app, and I have to have a backup in case all of a sudden it stops working on my phone or something, because that matters that much to me. Okay, and so the app we're talking about is EveryDollar. This is Dave Ramsey's app, the one that him and his company have created. And as I said a second ago, when we were first trying to use it, we absolutely hated it. I could not get it to work at all. I could make a budget, but the tracking seemed way too complicated. The tracking was the biggest thing. I could not get the tracking to work. I could not create a flow of my lifestyle that allowed me to track in such a way, and that made it easy. And so I hated it. I tried it for a month, and I was like, no, scrap this. I'll go back to a spreadsheet. Like I can do better with a spreadsheet. And it turned out they didn't change the app. I changed my the way I do my finances, and when I changed that, I went back to EveryDollar later, saying, well, let's try it again. And at that point, it was amazing. So I'm going to share that setup for you. So the first exercise for this section is to go make an account. It's a free app. There is a paid part of it. I've never seen the paid part worth the effort. Okay, so I've never paid for it. I've used the free version the entire time. But go ahead and create an account on EveryDollar, and go ahead and enter your budget. It's quite easy. You can, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, you can go to everydollar.com and just fill it out right there. If you would rather do it on your smartphone, in fact, I would encourage you to get the app. The app is a really valuable part of being able to do this process. But there are some issues, apparently, that it was a couple of years ago when all of a sudden I was working with some Canadians, and people were telling me, I don't see it in the App Store. It's just not showing up. And it was still there for me. I mean, I've had it on my phone for years now. But then I would go looking in the App Store on an incognito browser or something, and it would not show up at all. And I was, what's going on? And then it turned out I was with some people in person, and I used their phone and I searched it up, and then it wasn't there. And so I got the link and I went straight to where it should be on the Play Store. And it said, not available in your country. And I froze. I was like, oh my gosh. Because there's this whole thing about some of the Dave Ramsey stuff actually can't be done in Canada. If you don't know, his main flagship product is Financial Peace University, FPU. And in Canada, anything called a university has to be called such in the charter. Like in the thing that creates the provinces also creates the universities, and says that nothing can be called a university ever. And in fact, it even is very specific that you can't even use a U in place of university for any kind of advertisement. And so literally, if any church or any company or whatever in Canada runs FPU and the government finds out about it, Dave Ramsey in Nashville gets a cease and desist letter from the Canadian government saying you cannot run this. And so he's a Christian organization, and so he wants to follow the rules. And so what he's done is he wants to be able to say to the Canadian government, we do not support this being run in Canada. And if you actually go to daveramsey.com or ramseysolutions.com and try to buy Financial Peace University, they will not ship it to Canadians for that reason. Like you will not be allowed to buy it. So when I saw this app not be available in Canada, I freaked out a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to lose the app too? And so what I did is I did some research. I looked around and I found there is a backdoor way to do it. And so certainly, of course, check the app stores first. And if you go to WePayOffDebt.ca/everydollar, I've got the links there to the iOS store, the Apple store, and the Play Store, the direct links to them, and you can try that. And if you don't have the app already, it'll take you right there, and you can see if it is available if to you. If it is not available to you, I've got on that same page a workaround to try to deal with it otherwise. Okay, so definitely check it out there. And I think I've also got an app on there that if you don't like EveryDollar, here's another one that I found that does something similar, because I had to start looking for alternatives if EveryDollar was going to stop. Okay, so WePayOffDebt.ca/everydollar will get you there with some details on how to get the app if you're having trouble with it. Okay, that's exercise 1. And so as you get the app, and this is a screenshot from the desktop version or laptop version, and you can see it's quite easy to fill in. So this is the income section at the top. You write on the left, you can fill in what the description is. You can put down the planned amount. That's where your budget number is going to go, the budget you've been creating these last few classes. You're going to put those numbers in there. Again, as accurate as possible and as exact as possible to what the value is. And the received amount there on the end will be 0. That's okay. You can click the button at the bottom, add paycheck, to add as many sources of income as you'd like. Once you've entered your income, next step is the 4 walls. And so you do your giving. We've got giving here. There are different categories. You can actually click on the name, and you can actually change the name of the category if you want. You can delete things that are there. You just there's a little X beside it when you click on it, or a trash can or something. So you can just delete them really easy. You can add as many as you want to any category. So I've got some samples here, and then again, the planned amount. That is what you're planning to spend on that this month. And so that's your budget amount. That's what goes in there. Okay, whatever numbers you happen to have. Yeah, I've just used some sample numbers here from a previous example. Okay, and you can see here I've combined in this line water, waste, power, gas. You can do that if you want. You can combine them, put them all in one spot. If you want to separate them out, you can. You can really set this up as detailed or as simple as you'd like. Okay, so once you've entered the income, then go ahead and enter your giving and your 4 walls. Next, your debts, right? And go ahead and put in the debt. Now, there's a special category at the bottom for debt. You have to, that category cannot change. You can't change that one. It's a special category. I still have the category there, even though mine's empty. And so at that point, you start filling in whatever the loans are. You can put them in any order here. And then again, the planned amount is not the balance. The planned amount is the amount you are planning to put on it this month. Right? So if you're just planning to pay the minimum, then that'll be the minimum. If you're planning to put $300 on it, a minimum plus some more or something, then that's what you'd put there. But that number is the planned amount, the actual number. I think I highlight these. Yeah. The actual number you are planning to put on it this month. You can see in the bottom left, you can add more debts, as many as you need to. On the app, it's just as easy. And when you click on one, so if in this one, TD Visa, I clicked on TD Visa. On the desktop, this shows up to the right of the screen, and it gives you a spot where you can enter some of the details on this debt. So for instance, you can set the due date if you want to remind yourself when that debt is always due, what month or what day it's due this month. You can set the balance. So this is where you actually set the balance of the debt, and this is where you set the minimum payment on the debt. So in this situation, this TD Visa card has a balance of $3,456. The minimum payment is $157, but the person is planning to spend $300 on it. So this person is planning to put the $157 the $157 minimum payment, and then a little bit more on top of that. Okay, so that's where those numbers go in the process. Make sure when you change these numbers, make sure you click save at the bottom to make sure you save them. Once you've now entered the numbers, and I would encourage you to do this with your income, the 4 walls, and your debts, and maybe just put the debt as your minimums for now, the minimum payments. Then once you've done that, look at the top of the budget, all the way at the top of the screen. And this is in the app or on the website. And you're going to see one of three things. You're either going to see some amount left to budget, you're going to see a red number where this much over budget, or you're going to see it is an every dollar budget. Those are the only three options there could be. Hopefully, if you've only done income, four walls, and debt minimums, you're going to see this one. You actually have money left now to decide where it's going to go, right? And because it's a zero-based budget, whatever that number is, you have to plan for every penny of that to go somewhere. And so you might go back then to your debt and change the planned amount from 300 to 400 or 400 to 500 or whatever it is, until this number gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets to exactly zero. Your budget is not done until it is an every dollar budget. It has now, you've spent every single penny. Okay. And that's it. You've made a budget. Now, of course, while you're doing this, if you need to add some things that you've missed at this point, of course, go ahead and do that. Stuff like Netflix, Starbucks, eating out, whatever. If you want to add those, you can. But as I emphasized in the debt lesson, if you're in debt, you want to throw as much as you can at that because you really want the debt gone. So, certainly I do recommend having a little bit of something in a enjoyment fund. Usually a good way to go, I found with my wife, is to have some allowance or blow money for each of us that we can just blow it and spend it however we want. And so some small number where you can each have a little bit of that, just so you have something to spend on some fun or some Tim's or Starbucks or whatever you like, something to do to be able to enjoy the time, because you don't want to go so hardcore that you end up falling apart and then just blow your budget at some point, right? So you do need something, but you definitely want to keep that to a minimum. Okay, and it must end at zero. There's no going over and there's no going under. And that's one of the things I actually look for when I ask somebody how's their budget doing. When they say I'm always over budget or I'm always under budget, instantly I know they're not doing an every dollar budget, because you can never be over and you can never be under on a zero-based budget. Okay, and that is the best way to budget by far. Okay, and so the challenge becomes what happens when this changes. So we'll talk about that in a second, but for now, once you get these budget numbers in, once you make this budget, your second exercise is make sure you're praying over these numbers. God really wants you to be smart with your money. God wants you to be wise with your money. So make sure to take some time and just say, you know what, God, I pray, give me wisdom. James says he will give wisdom to those who ask, right? So definitely pray for wisdom. Pray that he's going to give you wisdom as to where to put this money, and that you and your spouse together can do this and actually come up with the right numbers for your situation. And then exercise 3 is just practice tracking. Tracking is the reason to me that every dollar is so nice. Having the app makes tracking dead easy, especially if you've got the just a banking app on your phone. If for instance, if you do all your transactions through a debit account with your bank, and you've got that online bank app on your phone and you've got the every dollar app on your phone, you put that together and literally you just jump back and forth between the two apps and you check, okay, transaction, great, let's go back to every dollar, enter it, okay, back to banking, next transaction, okay, back to every dollar, enter it. And it can literally be 15 seconds to enter a transaction in this process. So here's how you do it. This is showing the mobile version. No, this is showing both. The mobile version, the app at the bottom of the screen, at least this is the Android version, you'll see this button here, the 3 lines and the 3 dots. That's where you go in to enter a transaction. On the desktop version, you've got this button at the top right that is an orange button, says transactions. Either way, when you click on that, it'll essentially bring you to a spot like this. This is a picture from the mobile app, but it then asks you to enter the transaction. It's designed in a really nice way. You type in your expense or your income, whichever way you pick it. You type in the number. You don't even have to enter the decimal point. The last 2 digits are always on the right of the decimal point. So if you want to enter $1, you got to enter 100. The merchant category here, this is just a note. You can write anything you want in here. It doesn't have to be the merchant. If you want to write a note or some sort of description of what this is, you can. And you can just leave it blank. And that's one of the reasons that this goes really fast, is if it's just a basic thing that you know exactly what it is when you look at it, you can leave that blank, because now you're going to choose the budget item. And so when you click here, it gives you an opportunity to choose which budget item it is that this is going to attach to. And so, for instance, my Rogers bill, I've got one special line in my budget for my Rogers cell phone, and that's all that goes there. And so when that comes in, I enter the amount here, I leave the merchant blank, and then I write Rogers in here. As soon as I start typing ROG, it actually suggests Rogers, and I click it and we're done, right? And so that can happen literally in 7 seconds. It's a very, very short process to enter these transactions. The only thing the pro version of EveryDollar does is it connects to your bank, and then it will pull the transactions, and then you have to categorize them. And I just don't see the benefit. The transactions are just so fast to enter that, you know, I'm saving myself 7 seconds per transaction, and I'm going to pay $30 a month for it. No, it's just not worth it. I don't remember what the price was, but that's what it was at some point. Yeah, to me, it's just not worth the money. All right, so now once we've got this, like I said, we're going to talk about updating in a second. But first off, creating is eventually dead easy. Okay, once you get going, once you make a budget, and you're going to go through this first month, and you're having made it, you're going to update it, and you're going to track it. We'll talk about that in a second. We already talked about the tracking, but we'll talk about updating in a second. At the end of the first month, you now have a perfect budget. This is the thing people don't realize, is that if you're going to update the budget all the time and you're going to continually track it, well, then by the time you get to the end of the month, by the time you get to the point where you've spent everything you're going to spend, your budget is by definition perfect. It is exactly what you spent because you've updated it the whole way. And so on the 31st of the month, like, you know, before you go to bed, assuming all transactions are done for the month, it's done. It's not only is it done, it's perfect. It's not above budget. It's not below budget. It is right on exactly what you spent. So now imagine you have that going into next month. The way they do it is literally so nice. It's a click of a button, copy last month's budget, and you now have this month's budget. And it takes the exact numbers you had from last month and plugs them in this month, and you're already 90% of the way done on this month's budget. So that's the first benefit of this. It makes the creating of the budget dead easy. Once you've copied everything over from last month, now you go through and you change the things that are different this month, right? Add in whatever special things are happening this month. You know, if you, for instance, me, I've got my water bill is only every 3 months. And so sometimes it's just saving up money. Other times it's going to be an expense. So, you know, that'll change the way the budget looks from month to month, that kind of thing. And then, so within 10 minutes, guaranteed within 10 minutes, usually within 4 to 5 minutes, the budget's done. And we've got a good working budget for the next month, ready to go. So creating is dead easy. Updating is dead easy. And this is one of the tricks that a lot of people don't realize, is that when your world changes, you've got to change the budget. I was so convinced that you had to leave it the same. So I would make it before the month began, and I felt like I had to leave it the same so that I knew how bad a budgeter I was or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but looking back, it's just silly. The whole point of the budget is that I'm planning where my money's going to go. So if I plan that I'm going to go, you know, have a nice date out with my wife, we're going to go out and we're going to spend $150 on dinner, really nice dinner, right? If we go and then we have a great time and the bill ends up coming to 140, well, then later, I don't have to do it that night, of course, but later I enter the transaction into EveryDollar, and I now know that awesome dinner was not going to cost me 150. It was actually going to cost me 140. And so I can update the budget. I can change the 150 to the 140. Now, when I do that, I'm going to see this change, right? It was an EveryDollar budget before. And when I change that number from 150 to 140, I now will have $10 left to budget. And so this line at the top becomes all super important, because it now tells me, oh, I changed the budget. Great. But now I'm not done anymore. I've got $10 left to budget. And so I got to pick where that $10 is going to go. And same thing if it had been the other way around. If we budgeted $100 for this and it came out at 140 because we just didn't realize the prices or something, or maybe we didn't think about parking or whatever reason, we budgeted 100 and it was actually 140. Well, then we come home, I record the transaction, and this is the top of the budget will now say this. It'll now say $40 over budget. Again, I record the transaction 140. The budget previously was 100. I changed the budget to now be 140, exactly what we spent, because my world has changed. I know that meal was going to cost me 140 now because that's what it actually cost me. When I do that, it now says $40 over budget. And so now I've got to take that $40 from somewhere else. I'm not done until it says it is an every dollar budget. Okay. So I don't know why I felt the need to keep it the same. This changing really changed everything in the way that we were controlling our money. And whatever you change it, then you just need to adjust to always get back to zero. Okay. So that's creating and updating. The last thing is tracking, and tracking is dead easy, as I showed you, right? Entering transaction takes 7 to 10 seconds each, very, very quick. But with that though, this is something I discovered, and this was the issue when I first tried it, is you've got to simplify your financial life to make this process dead easy. And so the app is perfect. The app works really, really well, but your financial life has to be simple enough to be able to track it. So for instance, if you have 6 different debit accounts that you buy stuff out of, that can be really hard to keep track of all your transactions, right? I could imagine you'd imagine opening up your CIBC app and then entering those transactions, and then close the CIBC app and open the TD app, and now you're entering those transactions. Then you close the TD app and now you open the Scotiabank app and you're entering those and you can very quickly get lost as to which transactions have been recorded and which ones haven't, and that can really slow you down. So the big challenge here, and this is what I strongly urge you to do, is to simplify your financial life to the point where the tracking is dead easy. Now, for me, what this looked like was the credit cards. That was just 2 different accounts I had to look at. My debit account, because I had stuff that was coming out of there on auto payment, right? So I had to check my debit account, and my credit card account. And so I'd be going back and forth between the 2 apps, and I could never do a nice way of tracking those, not to mention how do I track the actual payment from the debit card to the credit card then? Where does that go? And if I bought something on the credit card on January 30th, but then I paid off the credit card on February 7th, when do I enter that transaction, January or February? And everything went crazy from there. So that was the big reason why I could never get on every dollar at all. It was horrible while we were using the credit cards. When I gave up the credit cards, and that we did, I've told that story many times, where we went on that trip and we came back with $1,800 of credit card debt that I couldn't pay off after being debt free. When we gave out the credit cards, I did not realize how substantial a change that small thing was in my life, right? We went from putting almost everything on the credit card to now, so probably from 75% of stuff on the credit card to now 100% of the stuff on my debit card. And when we did that, it changed everything in terms of the simplicity of our financial lives. Okay. So once we did that, now all of a sudden I've just got one account where everything's coming from. So a lot of married couples end up not combining their accounts, for instance, after they get married. They end up saying, well, you cover this and I'll cover this, and no problem. Strongly urge you, combine your accounts. Put them into one joint account where you're going to take everything out of. It is a massive game changer to simplify your life, and not just simplifying your lives. It is now combining your lives in a real way, right? There is massive accountability, right? It's not that somebody else has some amount of money over here. One person has some amount of money over here, and one person has some amount of money over here, and they're just talking about it. No. All of our money is here. And both of us look at all of our money. Both of us know exactly what's going on at all times. Okay. So this is a very valuable thing to do. a very difficult thing to do for some people, especially if there was a previous relationship and people had financial issues, and that can be a really difficult thing to work around. But it is totally worth it. My wife and I, we are on completely the same page with our finances. There is no hidden money. Everything is, we know where everything is. We together know where everything is. And we agree on our spending. We agree on our budget together. The app is a major tool for tracking, but the simplification is super, super important to be able to keep that tracking as dead easy. Okay, so a couple ways to simplify. Certainly using the EveryDollar web app with the app on your phone, on your smartphone. That is a way to simplify. It really does make things a lot easier. You can be lying in bed and just update your budget really quick. Having your banking app on your phone. That's a really nice, easy, simple, simplifying thing to do. Again, using just one main joint account. That can be a really nice simplifying way to go. Even if you want to use the other account as, I mentioned your blow money or allowance, whatever you want to call it. You can have the other account as the other person's blow money or other person's allowance. That's really nice because you can actually, if you budget $100 a month for their spending money, their allowance, you can just transfer $100 from the joint to the spending account, and then you don't track anything in that account. So if you just want to use one of the other accounts as the person's allowance, you can set up an automatic transfer of $100 a month, and then they can use that money. And the nerd, the person who's actually tracking in EveryDollar, they enter one transaction, $100 transferred. And after that, it doesn't matter because it's as if you took out the $100 cash and put it in an envelope. Once you have it in the envelope, or once you have it in that separate debit account, spend it to your heart's content until you run out, and then you're out of money, right? And though if you spend that in one transaction or 100 transactions, it doesn't matter to the person tracking in EveryDollar. Okay. Stop using credit cards. I would urge you to give that a shot. There's only one way I've seen somebody actually manage to do this, and I was with a credit card, and I was not willing to go this far, is they actually use their credit card at the store, and they will buy things with a credit card, and then while they are there, while they are in line, like they pay their bill, and before they leave, they open up their smartphone app and they pay off the credit card with that payment right then. If you're willing to do that, then maybe. But even then all you see in your debit account is credit card payment, 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 credit card payment. And you now have, when you go and enter those, you have to actually remember which one's which. And so then it makes you want to enter it right there at the store too. And so all of a sudden you're spending 5 minutes on your phone doing this stuff at the store as it's happening. I was never willing to do that. I got up to a point where I was paying off my credit card weekly just to try to keep it. And there was nothing short of doing what I just described. There was nothing that I could see that was actually going to make that simplified enough to be able to do it. So I really urge you to get rid of the credit cards. Try it out. Even if you just want to get a trial run and say, you know what, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, whatever, I'll put the credit cards in a drawer. I'm not going to cut them up or anything. I'm just going to put them in a drawer and I will leave them there. I will not use them for anything. And let's try this out and see how it goes. If somebody had been able to convince me of how amazing it is to have complete control of your money like I have now, I would have given up my points. Like, I haven't given up my points. We still get points. We have the actual PC card to get points now, right? And that was the thing. That was the reason I wanted to keep the credit card, was for my PC points. So I get less points now, but I still get points. But what I'm saying is, looking back, it would have been totally worth never getting a single point again to actually have the feeling of complete control of our money. Okay, that feeling is unmatched. Absolutely. And then record the cash going out, not transactions. So if there are situations where you do need to spend cash, then use the envelope method. And the envelope method is exactly what I described earlier. Get a physical envelope, take cash out, put the cash in the envelope, and spend out of the envelope. If you pay $100 in the envelope and you buy something for $50, you take the $100 out, you pay the bill, you put the $50 change back in the envelope. And that transaction, that spending of the $50 does not need to be tracked in EveryDollar. All that needs to be tracked is the $100 going in the envelope. Okay. We did that with our food money, even before we discovered Dave Ramsey. That was something we were really trying to do, was get a handle on our food budget and the controlling how much we were eating, because it just felt like it was getting out of control. It was a huge chunk of our budget. And so we actually opened up a separate debit account, a free debit account. Was with PC Financial at the time, and we set up an automatic transfer. And every week we send all of our food money to that account, and then we would only buy food out of the debit card. That is a virtual way of doing the envelope system, because then I would just, in every dollar, I would record the transaction of the transfer from our main account to the other debit account. And then I didn't have to record any of the transactions to buy groceries. I'd go to Safeway, Sobeys, Superstore, Costco, and none of those transactions would be recorded. It was just the whatever dollar amount, the transaction from the main account to the new debit card. That's what we did now, but there's even an easier way that's been created since then. It's the Koho card. Koho is a free prepaid Visa card. And so it runs through the Visa network. It works just like a Visa, except it's prepaid. In other words, you cannot go into debt with it. You have to load money onto it first in order to use it. You load it with e-transfers, and the e-transfer you send it to has auto deposit turned on. And so literally I will be at Superstore, say, oh shoot, I forgot to load the Koho card. While I'm waiting in line, open up the app on my phone, send an e-transfer to Koho, because everything's saved in the app, click send, and at the moment I click send, I get a notification Koho has just received funds. Like, it's that fast. And so now I go in my Koho app and I can spend the money right from there at the till, no problem. It runs through the Visa network and it's actually my money. More than that, what's even cool is they actually have a referral program. And so this link at WePayOffDebt.ca/Koho, if you go there, both you and I will make 20 bucks. That's pretty good, eh? So they are actually really trying to get more and more people to use it. And I think it's just an amazing tool. So I strongly encourage you, at the very least, go get it, get your free 20 bucks. And then, and you'll discover really quickly how valuable it is to have a credit card, not credit card, hanging around, right? To be able to buy, like, this is one of the ways that you can very easily buy stuff online without using a credit card. This thing goes through the Visa network. And so you can buy anything you can buy with a Visa, you can buy with this. You can rent a car with this, right? I've seen people do that. I haven't tried that one yet, but I've seen people do it. I have gotten a hotel with this. Okay, like it's a credit card as far as the system's concerned, right? So anyway, not all hotels, not all rental car companies, but it works a lot of the time. All right, so last thing I wanted to go over is something that comes up a lot, especially when there may be in a marriage that the two of them are not, neither of them is really a nerd, right? Nobody is really excited to get into an every dollar app and update this. Nobody loves spreadsheets, right? There's nobody like that in the family. Or if you're single and you're not that person, right? In that case, you've got to find some ways to remember, because you do need to remember to update this. You do need to remember to keep up to date. And too many times people just forget, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 days go by, and now they don't just dread doing it, they dread doing it, and they feel the shame that they forgot about it, right? And so we definitely want to set up ways that we can remember that. So a couple of things you can do. One is you can just set up expectations with your spouse, right? Talk to your spouse and share what you're trying to do here. Talk about how often you'd like to keep the transactions updated. If you want to do it daily, or if you want to do it, every 2 days or every 3 days. I probably wouldn't go too much more than that, because it does get hard to remember sometimes what the transactions were. Certainly you can set phone reminders, use Siri or Google, and just say, remind me at every day at 9 a.m. to update my budget, right? That's something you can ask Siri or Google to do. One of my favorite little tools is Follow Up Then. And this is just a cool little free website where if you send an email to whatever you want at followupthen.com, all it will do is email you back at that date and time. So if I send an email to every 9 p.m. at followupthen.com, whatever email I send it, the system will send me back that email every day at 9 p.m. Or if I send an email to every Friday at followupthen.com, then I will get an email back every single Friday. I think it's at 8 a.m. by default or something. You can write every Friday 8 a.m. at followupthen.com, and it will send back to you at exactly that time. It'll send back to you the email you send it. And so you can just send an email like, make sure to update the budget, or go update at everydollar.com, and then the link is in your email, and then you get the email and you just, oh, click, and now you're in the app. Okay, so that can be a really good thing. Of course, praying, remember, just asking God to open your mind and open your memory, and that's really important, because now you're saying to yourself and to God that this is important to me. This is something I really want to do. And with that, pray to have grace on yourself when you do forget, because everybody forgets. Everybody gets busy. Everybody forgets from time to time. And so you want to make sure that you're going to have grace on yourself when you do. And expect to be a little bad at this at the start, right? When you start on this, you're not going to be as good as you will 2 years after you've been doing it constantly, right? It is a skill, just like any other skill. And so it will take some time to get that right. It will take some time to build that muscle, and it is totally worth it. Okay. When you get there, this is what I just said, it is totally worth all the effort, because having this system set up, you do at that point have control of your money. You are consciously choosing where it's going to go. When you are wrong with your choice, or like your guess as to how much something would cost, you update it, and you track every transaction to know that you're exactly right. And you do this in 3 minutes a day. It's literally a very small amount of time to actually get all of this done. Okay. So hope that brought you some value. Dig into those exercises. Come share your progress in the Facebook group. I hope to hear from you soon. We'll leave it there.